like you said
they're not.
earlier.
And there's, when you bring up investors too, there's a really strong, a powerful new strategy really to working with rental properties, because as we know right now, and any investor who is in Tampa right now knows how difficult it is to make a long-term rental work. A rental that you buy this year, it's super difficult to make it work unless you're putting like 50% down.
Or getting cash or some other way.
Right. And so one of the things I've pivoted on is I still like working with long-term rentals, and that's the property management company side of things that I help work with. But PadSplit and Airbnb are two other options. And we talked about Airbnbs and short-term rentals and how you have to be very careful with them, because if you're not going all in on one, making it stand out, getting a pool, maybe being off canal or lake access or anything like that, it's very difficult to make. It's very scary and very, very risky. But with PadSplit, I mean, if you're not familiar, many people are not familiar with it. It's actually very similar to the PadSplit website. Is very similar to like an Airbnb kind of marketplace. And so owners, investors, and there are hosts now, property management companies who are maintaining these properties. But essentially what it is, you put a property on PadSplit for rent, but you're not renting the property. You're renting each individual room. And so when you buy a property, maybe you're buying a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, and you're turning these living rooms or garages or bonus rooms into additional bedrooms. So you might turn a 4-bedroom, 3-bath into an 8-bedroom or a 9-bedroom, 3-bath. And there are rules and best practices on how many bathrooms there should be per room, how many parking spots there should be per room, and all like location, how close to public transit, all that stuff. But essentially, you're trying to maximize as many rooms as you can, and then you rent out the room. And we talked about earlier how things are becoming unaffordable. In one sense, this is a little sad. But in another sense, it's making things more affordable for people who can't afford even a studio apartment. And so, because some studio apartments are like $1,000 a month. And so maybe with a room, you're paying $800 a month or $200 a week. And there's nicer and there are less nice rooms you can rent. And you're sharing access to the kitchen, to the bathrooms. And so I kind of feel like this strategy, I think it's very similar to where Airbnb was in its infancy, because Airbnb started out by renting out couches. They didn't start out renting out whole houses,
mother-in-law
right?
suites,
Mother-in-law suites,
attic spaces and stuff like that.
That's kind of where it started out. And Airbnb started out very affordable for people to hey, look at this property. We can rent it for $50 a night. Right. And hotel room is $80 a night. And we have a whole house to ourselves. Maybe it even has a pool. Anyway, it started out very cheap. And now, obviously, it's different. Everybody's trying to maximize their dollar, and they're trying to maximize the ROI on their property. But anyway, with PadSplit, $200 a night is kind of the average in Tampa for investors and people who have properties that they would like to kind of convert into the PadSplit model. It's very lucrative because, your 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or I was using the example of a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. Maybe it's renting out at $2,700 a month for long term. But now with 4 bedrooms turned into even 8 times $800 a month is about $6,400 a month. Now that's not all proceeds. That's not all net. Or that's your net. You have higher management fees associated. You have more expenses, but you are cash flowing at least 3 times more. Yeah, I'll say at least 2 to 3 times more than what you would have with a long-term rental. And it allows you to buy in more places where you wouldn't be able to cash flow at all. You'd be negative a month for your long-term rental. So I'm very excited about that.
I've got 3 immediate thoughts when I hear about that, because I'm not up on that.
That's fine.
My first thought is like dystopian nightmare, right? That you have a house that you have to go in and you have to rent a table out to put your head down to sleep, something that nature. And it reminds me of
everything gets smaller and smaller. It's no longer a room. You're renting out a closet.
Well, it makes me think. I saw some kind of documentary thing, something about these apartments in China, and it's like a pet store. They're in there stacked, and they're like on top of each other on bunk beds, and they've got like a little faucet coming out of the wall that they cook on, and they use to cook. And it's like, my God, that's such a. It's literally like a...
Well, good thing we're not in a communist country. Yeah, so that's one point.
And then my second thing is it sounds just like a college apartment, because that's what...
It does.
That's how they do it.
But the stats are averaging 25 to 40-year-old singles.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the stats they have.
Okay.
And
then the third
those
thing
are the average person staying there.
I mean, I know Airbnbs run into code issues and city stuff. That seems like a hornet's nest of problems.
It does, but we have an unaffordability crisis. Mm-hmm. And so when you have a crisis and there's a solution on a silver platter,
government might step back and
they
say,
already have in some. So PadSplit isn't just in Tampa. They're in, what are they in? They're in many states. I don't have the exact figures. I know they're in like 30 plus markets. They just started Miami this year, but they've been in Tampa, I think, for at least a year or two.
So they've
worked with cities, and I think they are headquartered out in Atlanta, Georgia, and they've actually worked there to with the regulators to make this work. Mm-hmm. So they're not just kind of swooping in shady tactics. Hey, let's take this nice property in an HOA and trick everybody into thinking it's a regular house, and then all of a sudden they have 10 people moving. You have 10 people. Right. Now these are more longer term stays. They're not short term, right? So they are people who typically stay there from like I think 8 to 10 months at a time.
Yeah.
But there's best practices on where to buy these properties, and that's important. But and it is important not to buy in certain areas where this would not work because, but I will say that they have made efforts to work with regulators, and we have a crisis that is very hard to solve right now, especially in an area like St. Pete where it's so compact. Try to find a property for sale that has at least half an acre.
Oh,
it's impossible. It's going to be $1 million plus, be $2 million plus. So. Yeah. So when you have limited space, people are going to be they're already starting to build ADUs. St. Pete has already lifted some regulations on building
an
ADUs.
Extension of what tons of people do. And I've got on another one of these podcasts, I was talking about the way I got started when I was like 20. I bought a house and rented the other 2 rooms out to good friends, and they basically covered the whole mortgage payment. And I knew a lot of people doing that at the time, just taking on roommates, and back then it was $400 a month. And
that's
now,
house hacking. Yeah. And I love working with people who want to do house hacking.
Right. If you're single, you don't have a family or baggage or anything, just boom, pop in, rent the other rooms, friends or not, and you're covered.
Exactly.
You're
and
good.
that is one. If you're single, again, it's very hard to get when you're married.
Very
my wife would not be on board with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
very specific.
First time home buyer, or you're doing the FHA and you're hopping. So it works in many ways, but it is very similar to that. But these PadSplit properties are deconvertible. You can deconvert a room into the living room again, and then all of a sudden you have massive appreciation, right? After 5 or 10 years or however long you're cash flowing on that property. Really, the benefit to PadSplit properties that I've seen is high cash flow, high return on investment. There's some capital needed up front to convert. I mean, it might be $5,000 per room you want to create, and then if you're converting a garage, there's some of that. But there are loan products out there that you can get, right? That'll help you flip, not flip the property, but fix it up into how you want. But yeah, that's one of the more. Not everybody likes the idea. Not everybody doesn't. It's not as sexy as Airbnb. It's not as it can be as passive as long-term renting because you can hire a property manager or a host to manage the property for you. Yeah. But I just think it's just another strategy right now. When you have a single family and you're underwater and you don't want to sell, or you're not able to rent it for right now, we have a pretty slow rental market as well. Like this month, we're in a slow season, right? So October to December are historically the most not difficult. They're the slowest periods of time to rent out a property, the quickest being obviously right before summer and during summer. So if you have a hard time renting your property out, consider that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I've learned something new. I haven't heard of that yet.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Don't buy it in an HOA though.
No.
No matter what you do, don't buy it in.
Yeah. Try to stay out of it.
It's kind of hard in Tampa. That's every HOA.
I know
city.
They've got a firm grip on the market and on the properties out there.
And I'm not a spokesperson. I'm not a spokesperson for PadSplit. So I work with investors. I work with different strategies.
It's a tool for you to educate your clients on. Yeah. To say, here's how you can do flips. You can do short term. You can do long term. You can do multifamily. You can do commercial. You can do. Yeah. You need to know about that kind of thing because it opens up opportunity for them.
And like Airbnb in its infancy, I think it's very cool to get in early on things that are expanding, because when you get in early on something, there is a lot of room for growth. But when you get in late, if you got into Bitcoin too late, man, you kind of lost the train there. Now maybe there's another train here in another couple of years. We'll see. But
I'd like to make my money back on that if I can.
Hey, same here, man. I sold a month before it tripled 2 years ago. But anyway,
yeah, I hear you.